just jump right into it and talk about
Yeah,
this great movie, Robot Dreams. One thing I noticed a similarity narrative wise between this one and Blancanieves is you capture so well the melancholy of separation and how life is unpredictable. You know, we chart one course, but then life goes somewhere else.
sure.
What was the inspiration for this story aside from the original graphic work that it's based on? Where did the attraction to this material come from?
Yeah, definitely. The original source is the graphic novel of the same name by Sarah Baron, which I loved the first time I read it. But what happened is that in 2018, when I read it again, when I got to the end of the book, I was really moved. I thought the end of the book was devastating, and I really thought about so many people that I loved that they were not with me anymore.
Mm.
So that part of it, the theme of the graphic novel, that resonated me as a director, as a storyteller. So I really wanted to tell a story about friendship, relationships, its fragility, especially, and how we overcome loss by the use of memory, how sometimes we have to move on, the mourning. So, as a theme, I think they're universal themes that people can relate. So, that part, I thought the adaptation, that's what interested me the most, and to keep the soul of the graphic novel, although the film is very different in many aspects from the graphic novel, but the soul had to be the same.
And did you have any contact, any how involved was the author with the adaptation, or were you given free reign? Was it one of those where they said, do what you want with it?
I was very lucky with Sarah Baron, the author. I met her in 2018. We met in New York. I'm in New York right now. I'm at Neon offices.
Ah,
So we met in New York in 2018 in a coffee shop in the Lower East Side. And I told her straight, I want to adapt Robot Dreams and make a hand drawn 2D film. She had seen Blancanieves and she liked it very much. So she said, "Look, Pablo, I made the graphic novel. Now you make the film. Carte blanche." She was not involved in any artistic or creative decision of the adaptation. She loved the script. She read it early on. She came to visit the studios in Spain, the film animation studios, and she came to the premiere at the Toronto Film Festival. She came to the Oscars. I'm going to see her tonight. So it's great that she loves the adaptation as much as I love her book. So we are telling the same story, but in very different ways, and that we are very happy with the relation that we have, Sarah and I. We are close.
oh no, and it's fantastic because the film does have that wonderful essence of the sincerity of it. And something you do so well that's incredibly difficult, in my opinion, is you capture that sincerity without needing dialogue. And Blancanieves, of course, was also a silent movie, and this one is also a silent movie. What do you like about the silence, right? About telling everything just visually without needing monologues and speeches to explain everything.
Well, I'm happy that you were able to get the melancholy of the film, the sincerity of the film, because really I'm at a stage as a film director that I want to talk about very simple, pure things, complex things, but in a simple way. And definitely to write with images, it's what appeals me as a film director. As you said, I made a film Blancanieves that it was also wordless. It had no dialogue. And I think to write with images is what makes cinema a unique art form. I is what I like to call pure cinema. You
Mhm.
know, I believe cinema should be a sensorial experience. Robot Dreams is like a musical, and is there's a lot of like visual poetics in the film. So I like the idea that that audience come and just get inside the screen, and for 1 hour and a half they forget about themselves. And of course, I love the idea that when the film is finished, there's an intellectual analysis, a debate. That
Mhm.
moment, that moment that the audience come and talk about the film, I love that. But when I think you're watching the film, you have to feel it. You don't have to think, you have to feel. And that really helps when it's visual storytelling only.
And how were the how did you experience the challenges doing animation in comparison to doing live action? Because in Blancanieves and in your other work, it's live action. You've worked in color. You've also recreated that look of the classic silent film look. But here it's all animated. Um,
Yes.
yeah, what was the challenge like in comparison to that, and which challenge would you prefer? Are you gonna continue doing animation after this one?
Definitely was a fantastic experience, and yes, I will do it again. Of course, like Guillermo del Toro is a big supporter of the film. I met him a year ago at the Annecy Film Festival, and we talk about that live action director. Once you try animation, if you're patient, and I'm patient, it's addictive because it gives you another color palette. I can tell stories that I couldn't tell in live action. So that's super satisfying. There were many, many challenges, but I would say more than a challenge, I was very scared before I started production, but not, I had fear, but not the fear that blocked me. It was more like the fear of the unknown. But early on, I realized that it had many more things in common, animation and live action, that I thought. And it was just a question of making substitutions. In the sense, in live action, you have a director of photography, art directors, hair, makeup. You have a lot of people around you asking you questions nonstop. In animation, you have one department that is art department. You have an art director, you have artists, but the way you communicate in live action with your crew is the same way I was communicating. The director doesn't know how to have the technical knowledge. He has to know what kind of a story he wants to tell, the tone, where to place the camera, and more especially, a director has to be able to get good performances. It doesn't matter if they're actors or if it doesn't matter if they're drawings. My obsession and the biggest challenge, if there was one challenge, is like, how can I get good performances of animated characters? Because in my experience, there's so many animated films that the drawings or the characters tend to overact. They indicate, they think that more is better. And I wanted to make this film with performances that remind me to live action actors. So it really had to be less is more, trust the story. If it's something internal, it will come out. It's about the eyes. So the challenge, that was the biggest challenge, how to get live action like performances in animated drawings. And the answer is all about the eyes. I was just upset about the eyes of my characters and repeating nonstop to my animators, less is more, less is more, less is more, And of course, I had one of my head of the departments is the animation director, Benoit Ferremont. He's a great animation director. He had worked with Sylvain Chomet in The Triplets of Belleville. He
Mm.
worked with Tom Moore in The Book of Kells. So he really was my right hand, and he was really my channel to communicate with the animator. So he really helped me with his knowledge to achieve the kind of animation that I wanted.
It's so true because Robot, in particular, I love how he's looking at everything in wonder. Every time he sees more of the world, you see in his face that innocence of discovering the wider world of of New York. Uh, and also, you know, something special about this movie is we are living through an interesting, I think, a an emerging kind of golden age of animation, uh, that's not defined anymore so much by the big, studios, the big Disney movies. What do you hope Robot Dreams contributes in particular to, in now that it's premiering in the United States, animation here is always had this bad uh, cliche of,
Yeah.
oh, it's a if it's for families or if it's for children, you need to water it down. And if Disney had made this movie, Robot and Dog would have had song and dance numbers, and they would have ended up together, at the end of the movie and and stuff. Uh, what do you hope Robot Dreams contributes to changing our perceptions of animation and what it can do as a medium?
Well, you're right. There's a lot of prejudice still towards animation, not only in the United States, still in Europe as well, you know. So that's something that we have to fight. And I'm going to quote again Guillermo del Toro, when he got the Oscar for Pinocchio, he just said, animation is not a genre, it's a way to tell story, until people don't understand that genres are comedy, musical, horror. Animation is not a genre. It's just we can tell any kind of stories, but instead of using a camera, we can use hand drawing. It can be stop motion. There are many techniques in animation. There are all kind of techniques. So I think Guillermo del Toro as our leader, to call him, like he really was breaking this. We're making cracks from this glass ceiling that we have, and I think it helps that we come from live action, because we know that there's a prejudice towards us. Because I see how I get treated in festivals and by some journalists and some audience. I see the difference. So, but I think things are changing. I think there are cracks, and I think when directors like Wes Anderson made masterpieces like The Isle of Dogs, or director like Fernando Treva, or director like Richard Linklater. I think every time there are more animation, live action directors, there we are exploring the power of animation. And I can tell you that some of my favorite films of the last 20 years, that many of them are animation. I can quote Miyazaki's work, Takahata, Ghibli, Mamoru Hosoda, or films like I Lost My Body, films like Persepolis, films like My Life as Zucchini, or one of my favorite stop motion of all times, Mary and Max.
Mm.
The director is going to make a new movie right now that's going to Sylvain Chomet. So I think between all of us, and I think I'm part of that, we are going to break that's glass ceiling, but still there's a lot of work to do. And in a way, I think in my case I can tell to the film lovers that like Blancanieves, I'm sure they're going to like Robot Dreams, because there's sister films, they're so connected. So I think, and I tell you one anecdote, my brother, which is my biggest fan, is my older brother. Since I made my first short film, he said I was a genius, even if I'm not. When I told him I was going to make an animation film, he said, "Oh, no, Pablo, I don't like animation. That's for kids." And then 5 years later, when he saw it at a premiere, he came in tears and he hugged me and he told me, "From all your four films, this is your best."
Mm.
So I changed if I was able to change my brother towards animation, maybe I can change some film lovers too.
Yeah. And last question to finish off. Pablo, of course, you just also got nominated for an Oscar. So I don't know if the stories are true that once you're nominated, the world is yours. So what's after Robot Dreams? What can we expect from you next?
Well, the thing is that the success of your last film gives you credit to make another one, and that's good. That's why I'm very happy that at least I'm going to make one more film. They will let me do one more film. And of course, once you are being nominated for an Oscar, they can always put on the poster and advertising from the Oscar nominated director, which is good. It sells. So I'm happy for that. But I'm going to continue making the type of films I've been making up to now. They're personal films that I write and direct, that they come from my guts. They're very films that they're personal and something that I really want to make. I have a great producers in Spain and France. You know, I get offers from the States. If I love the story, if I think the story is unique, surprising, emotional, and also with humor, because my favorite type of films, they also have humor. So I love tragic comedies. I love dramedies. So, and if it's something that I haven't done before and it's a challenge, I'm all the way for it. But I haven't decided yet what I'm gonna make next. I know Robot Dreams opening in China next week, opens in Japan. And I think after China and Japan, I think I'm going to rest and I'm going to just start thinking about my next film.